Okay, great. So it's called advanced mapping because this is a step beyond the in-browser editor, which most people start with, which is called the ID editor. It's in browser because you don't need to download or install anything for the ID editor. And that's actually why we typically introduce people to remote mapping first through the ID editor, that browser-based editor. JOSM, the one that's mentioned here, is more advanced. It's more powerful. You can map faster. But the installation process is a little bit tricky. So that's actually why we often don't introduce it to first-time mappers, because we worry that after about 25 minutes of them setting up, they might lose interest in the mapping experience. I'm going to take you through on the call today how to set up JOSM, and I'm going to then show you how to map in JOSM. And the idea being that you can then take what you've learned today and kind of share that with others and teach other people how to get started in JOSM. It's a really nice kind of natural progression as people get more experience and more enthusiastic to offer them JOSM. And people sometimes might get a bit frustrated with the in-browser ID editor and feel it's a little bit slow. And after a few weeks of mapping with it, they might look to something that's slightly more, that they can do slightly more with, and that's where JOSM comes in. So it's a nice sort of natural next step to recommend for people that are more interested in mapping. JOSM is an abbreviation. It actually stands for Java OpenStreetMap Editor. So it's a Java-based desktop application. It is very similar to the ID editor that is the in-browser editor that people start with. And there are lots of things that are very similar between the two tools. But it has more features, many more features, and much more can be done with it. Here's a side-by-side of like a race. On the left is the ID editor, the in-browser editor, mapping buildings. And on the right is JOSM, mapping buildings, same buildings. And this is just showing buildings, just showing how much faster the JOSM editor is versus the ID editor. So you can map often twice, even more as fast as the ID editor with far fewer clicks. So it's a much more powerful tool. Now, I guess if you're new to JOSM, if you follow me as I run through these steps on the call, this will help you practice and get started with it as well. So I would recommend following these steps that I'm going to share. That's the best way for you to learn, and the best way for you then to be in a good position to teach others how to use the JOSM tool. So it's a Java-based tool, which means that you do need to ensure you've got Java, the latest version of Java, in your operating system. So follow this link to download Java. You might already have Java, but it might be worth going to that link just to make sure that you've got the latest version. Okay. That website's going to automatically identify the appropriate installer for your operating system. And so just click on download to start the download process for Java and install it. If you're running an event and teaching people how to use JOSM, probably over 50% of the people in that event are already going to have Java on their laptop or desktop. But by sharing this step, you're making sure that everyone has it. And that's going to save you time later on when you're actually showing people how to install and get started with JOSM. Once you've installed Java, the next step is to visit the JOSM website to actually install the JOSM application itself. Okay, I'll just show you that quickly. So depending on your operating system, you can choose the install. So if you have a Windows device, you can choose here to download the, I would recommend downloading the exe file, the install file, by clicking on that. Okay, or you can also visit the Microsoft Store if you like to download it from the Microsoft Store. Either way, you can either click on the exe file, the execute file, or the Microsoft Store, and that's going to then allow you to download the install file. If you've got a Mac, then you can download here the Mac version. But also if you've got, for example, Ubuntu or Debian, there's also options to install there as well. So depending on your operating system that you have on your computer or desktop, laptop, you got to choose the appropriate version from this list here.
Okay, can you bear with us 1 minute, so because Java is still installing. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, Claude, can you share this link where we can download the OSM? We don't have it in this chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, Andre. So you've only missed one small step, which was to make sure you had the latest version of Java. And to make sure you do download the latest version of Java, you can download it from the link I've just dropped in the chat. Once you've downloaded and updated Java, you can then head to the second site to download the mapping tool that we're going to be using today, which is called JOSM or JOSM. Yeah, no problem, Andre.
Okay, sorry, I'm in the phase. I'm downloading. So 1 second, I'm selecting the one suitable for my computer.
Perfect.
But I think I have it. But so how can, and I think we don't have the same screen. Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
The previous one. Oh, we have it. And then you selected this one. Okay, all platform.
If you've got a Windows laptop or desktop, I would choose the exe file here.
Okay.
And when you do that, it's going to download the install package, about 80 megabytes. And then if you click on that exe file, it's going to run it. So it's going to run the install.
Yeah, it's 80 megabyte, correct.
Awesome. So when you're running an event like this and showing people how to install JOSM, as we're doing now, it does tend to be good to pause at this stage. Go ahead.
We can send it ahead. The Windows protected your PC. We can send it ahead of time, so they can, if they want to download it, or this is not for download by user.
Yeah, you could send the install instructions ahead of time. Yeah, particularly the downloading. So 80 megabyte download can take a while depending on your connection speeds. So yeah, that can be a good thing to do, to say, please visit this. Well, first, please download Java, and then also in preparation for the call, please download the install file for JOSM.
Okay, it's installing.
The next steps I'm going to show you shortly, they're best to do really on a call together because they're a little bit complex.
Okay, I'm waiting for the download.
Nice.
For the installation, sorry. But where it disappear? You? Where did you pop up in? Shouldn't. Okay, it's installed, I guess. Okay, Java OpenStreetMap editor. Okay, I have it downloaded.
Great.
Okay, downloaded.
Great. So once it's installed, you'll just want to launch the application.
But it didn't show any message that it is installed. It disappeared suddenly, and then weird.
It might have already installed, in which case you can, if you search from the Windows browser button on the bottom left here, you can just search for JOSM. And if it's already installed, it will say JOSM app.
Okay, I installed just maybe I skipped this step. I installed it. I have opened it, and what was the next step?
Oh, great. Okay. So when you've opened it,
Yeah, I have this. Yeah.
perfect. Great. I'm just going to pause there and check that we're all at this stage now. So you can, the launch screen of JOSM is quite strange. It always looks like this. It just has a list of text with information about the latest update and other news. It's always like this. So if you can see a window a bit like this, then you're you're in the right place and you've launched JOSM correctly.
Yes, I am right.
Perfect. So now there's some steps we need to do here to make sure that JOSM is set up correctly to work with OpenStreetMap, your OpenStreetMap account, and with HOTS Tasking Manager. So there's some steps here which I'm going to take you all through. You only really need to do these steps once. The first time that you've installed JOSM and the first time that you've launched JOSM, you'll just need to follow these steps.
اوكي هلا بحولك على زيت الرام.
Okay, so once you've launched JOSM, you need to go to the top of JOSM. There's a bunch of menus here. The one that's important for us is edit. So if you click on the edit menu in the top left here, you can scroll down to preferences and click on preferences. This is going to allow us to set up the correct settings for JOSM to work properly for us. And again, we only ever need to do this once. Now, the first submenu we need to go to here is the OpenStreetMap server submenu. So look on the list of submenus on the left-hand side and look for one that says OpenStreetMap server, OSM server. What we need to do is we need to ensure that we are connecting to our OpenStreetMap account so that any edits we're making are through our OpenStreetMap account. Now, when you're in this submenu within the preferences panel, you'll see in the center now, it says authorize now, brackets semi-automatic. As long as this radio button here is selected to use OAuth 2.0, this should work correctly. So if you select authorize now, brackets semi-automatic, this should open up a new tab in your browser that you've got open. And from here, you can sign into OpenStreetMap. Okay, so sign in using your OpenStreetMap details. And then select authorize once you've signed in. And what that will do is it will authorize JOSM to use your OpenStreetMap sign-in. So once you've done that, it'll say okay and go back into JOSM, and it's done. You've now signed in effectively using your OpenStreetMap account to JOSM. So again, that was in the OpenStreetMap server submenu of the preferences window. And you get to the preferences window by going in JOSM, you go to edit preferences, or F12 if you're using Windows and you've got a keyboard. You can hit F12. Now, there's lots of submenus in the preferences panel, but the one we're interested in is the OpenStreetMap or OSM server one. And that will allow you to sign into your OpenStreetMap account. Any questions about that? Anyone having any trouble with that?
Okay, it's working, but one second. So
Nice.
I can catch you.
Nice.
I have an issue.
Go ahead.
Okay, when I click on authorize, I have now a blank screen. Yeah.
Do you mind? Are you happy to share your screen?
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing.
But it's blank screen. I didn't see. So I clicked. I connected on OpenStream. Okay, I can share. But if you what I missed something. So look here. This is what I get. I clicked here, authorize, if you have seen, and then it opened and I connected on my account.
Okay. I think you're good. I think you're good because if you go
No.
back to JOSM, it's showing you an access token.
Okay.
So I think you're good.
I click on OK.
Yeah.
But why the website disappeared? So this one.
I don't know. It might be because it recognized that you are already signed in to OpenStreetMap in your browser, so it just recognized that and opened up a blank tab.
Look, it gave me OK here and.
Oh yeah, nice. That's good. Yeah, so it must have just, unlike me, it recognized you already signed in. So it just bumped you straight in.
Okay.
So you're good. I think you're signed in. Okay. Now the next thing we need to set up in JOSM is in the preferences menu again. So go to edit. If you're not in the preferences window, go to edit preferences in JOSM.
Oh my God. Edit preferences.
And now from the submenus on the left-hand side in this window, look for one that says remote control and click on that. When you click on remote control, by default, this checkbox here that says enable remote control will not be checked, but you need to check it. So you need to click on enable remote control. And once you click on enable remote control, you can just leave all of these other checkboxes as they are. So just a reminder, you go edit preferences, and from the preferences menu, choose the remote control submenu, and then check the checkbox that says enable remote control by clicking on it. That's a relatively simple step, but it's an important one. What that does is it means that when that is checked, you can link other browser-based tools like Tasking Manager, like HOTS Tasking Manager, to JOSM. So it allows it to speak to JOSM, so you can actually open up a task in JOSM. Any questions about that stage? Any issues? Once you've done that, I would leave the preferences menu open because there's one more thing we're going to do.
Any issue? I can't hear you anymore.
Any issues, anyone? Or all good?
Okay, I thought it was frozen, so you're still here. Yeah, it's good. We clicked on OK, and
Great.
yeah.
Okay. So the final thing we need to do in the preferences menu is we need to install plugins. And plugins are they're like enhancements to JOSM. They will make it even more powerful. And there's some plugins which are really crucial to humanitarian and development mapping. So if you're not in the preferences menu, you can go there again by selecting edit preferences. Or if you're already in the preferences menu, you need to find now the submenu, which is plugins. I've got an icon here, which is like a puzzle piece, but you might have a slightly different icon. Now, the plugins menu, when you go to that, it's going to show you a very big list of available plugins. These are like all the globally available plugins. So JOSM is developed by the OpenStreetMap community, effectively developed by volunteers. But there's also a big ecosystem of supporting tools and plugins. And these are also developed by the community. And so that's why there's a very big list of things. These are all basically enhancements to JOSM that you can choose to install. Now, JOSM by itself is already very powerful, but you can make it even more powerful by installing some plugins. And I'm going to share with you 3 plugins, which I would say are pretty much essential for humanitarian development mapping. Okay.
I still didn't find it once again.
So if you go to, if you're in JOSM, you go to Edit Preferences.
Yes. I'm here. I'm looking for the plugin you clicked on.
Yeah, I'll share the 3 plugins now. So the first one we're going to install.
Okay, now I see. Okay.
If you type in building in the search box near the top here, we're going to install the plugin which is called buildings_tools. So if you type that into the search box, it's going to filter all of the results. And when you see buildings_tools, click the checkbox next to it, and that will mark it for install.
Okay, I'm done.
Nice. Now the next one to install is called Utils plugin 2. Utils. So I'm going to Utils plugin 2. I'm going to share that in the chat as well, so you can copy and paste it. Utils plugin 2. So once you search for that, check the box next to it, and it will mark it for install as well. What was the final one I said? Mapathon, of course. Yeah, the final one, the third and final one, which is great for getting started with humanitarian development mapping, is called the Mapathon. So if you type in Mapathon, yeah, it's recorded. It's being recorded, this session. If you type in Mapathon, I've just dropped that into the chat, you'll see Mapathon. It's simply called Mapathon. Check the box next to it to mark it for install. And now you've got all 3 of those plugins checked. You can just select OK, and that's going to install. Okay.
It's telling me to restart. The following 3 plugins have been downloaded. You have to restart. Okay, not the computer.
Yeah, it may prompt you to restart JOSM itself. That's okay. That's good. So I'll just drop the name of those 3 plugins again all together into the chat. I'm wondering if it might be fun to try and finish the Lebanon project, which is very nearly complete, and demonstrate mapping this one. I'm just going to need to change the, let's just quickly allow everyone to map it for just the remainder of this session so you can all access it. But yeah, the next step, now you've got JOSM set up properly. So if it's asked you to restart JOSM, just make sure you're on this page, that you're just on the kind of launching page of JOSM, which looks like this. Now you've got it all set up. So the setup, as a reminder, was to log in using your OpenStreetMap account to JOSM, which gives you an access token, they call it. The second step was to set up remote control, which allows Tasking Manager to speak to JOSM. And then the third and final step was to install those 3 plugins. Those 3 things, those setup steps are essential. And they're a little bit tricky and a bit fiddly. So although it might be good to email attendees of an event beforehand telling them to download the installer, for the actual setup of JOSM, installing the plugins, logging into OpenStreetMap, and setting up remote control, better to do that on the call, better to do that during a mapathon, either in person or on a call, because that gives people a chance to troubleshoot with you. And people often run into issues with those setup steps. Okay. So when you want to map using JOSM, as long as it's set up correctly, you just need to have JOSM open in order for it to work. So if you intend to map using JOSM, just make sure that you open up JOSM like this, and then go to the Tasking Manager. So back in your browser, go to the Tasking Manager. We still use the Tasking Manager for finding a project, for finding a task, reading the instructions, selecting a task, and choosing a task to map and updating that task. The only thing that we don't do anymore in Tasking Manager is map directly in Tasking Manager when we're using JOSM. I'm going to show you how you link to JOSM. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go to Explore Projects in the Tasking Manager. So I'll just share a link to where I am. Make sure you're signed into Tasking Manager. So make sure you can see your username in the upper right-hand corner. If you're not signed into Tasking Manager, just sign in. And now let's click on a project, and let's click on the Lebanon project. It would be nice to finish this one. It's very nearly complete. So click on the Lebanon project. And typically during a JOSM training, we don't run people through the same kind of detail we would usually run them through in a beginner event. So the assumption is people have attended a mapathon before and know how to map. So we wouldn't tell them, for example, spend too much time, for example, on describing the description of the project or what this is saying about types of mapping or the imagery to use, because it would be understood that most people know that, or everyone knows that already. Let's select contribute. Okay. And we can see the instructions here. The really important bit for us here as JOSM contributors is that we need to make sure that before we select a task, that the editor choice at the bottom here is set to JOSM. It might be set to the default for you at the moment, which is ID editor. If that's set to ID editor and you select map a task, it's just going to launch the ID editor, which is the in-browser editor. So if you're using JOSM, you must ensure that this dropdown is selected to JOSM. And that will ensure that when you launch a task, it will launch in JOSM.
I can't see it.
This dropdown. So if you can't see it saying JOSM, then click on it and select. If you see it saying ID editor, click on it and then choose JOSM.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm looking for it.
Nice.
Okay, so we are on the map.
I'll share a link to the page I'm at.
I am on the side, the same side, but
Nice.
the website. But okay, 1 second. I'm checking my page. I don't have task instruction contributor. Maybe I should click on contribute. Explore project, Lebanon conflict Navati. I have the same, but if I click on contribute, okay, no. Okay, so I missed clicking on contribute. Now I have it.
Nice.
I put JOSM. Yes.
Great. So choose JOSM from the editor dropdown.
Yes.
And now, as long as you have JOSM open, so as long as JOSM is running, quietly running, if you select map a task, it's going to assign you an available task. It's going to show you where it is on this map. And it's going to show you the task status. But the important thing is, you may notice JOSM starts to flash like this. And so this is telling us, go into JOSM now to look. So we can click on JOSM. And now the task is loaded in JOSM.
Okay.
Now, this view is quite similar to the ID view, the ID editor view. What we have is we have in the center of our screen, dominating the screen, we have the map view. This is showing us the satellite imagery, which loaded automatically. And it's showing us also a bunch of, you probably will see this, a bunch of objects. Those are mapped objects, mapped things. Map roads, map buildings, and other things that may be mapped in your area. We can also see the extent of our task. Our task boundary in JOSM, in the ID editor, this is a pink boundary. But in JOSM, this is like a teal or a kind of bright green blue boundary. That defines the extent of the area you need to map. And actually, even more useful, outside of that area is grayed out and hashed. So it's not really even showing me data outside of that area.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Now, how to navigate. So just to zoom in and out, you can scroll in using your mouse wheel, scroll in and out. That allows you to zoom in and out. To move your field of view, hold your right mouse button. Hold your right mouse button and drag, and that will move your field of view. The default tool, which is active, when you launch JOSM is called the selection tool. And the selection tool means that if you click on something, it selects it. So it turns red, which means it's selected. If you drag, it's going to draw a selection box. So if you drag over several things, it's going to select several things and they all turn red. So this has selected this road and these buildings. So that's the default tool, which is active when you launch JOSM. Now, selection is useful, but it's actually a little bit more advanced. So I'm gonna touch on the selection a bit later. We use that for doing things like moving existing mapped objects or changing the tags of existing mapped objects. It's a little bit more complex, and so I'm going to get to that later. What I want to show you now is how to map a building from scratch in JOSM, because that's one of the most important things to learn. Now, because we've installed a really great plugin called the Buildings tool, this step of mapping buildings in JOSM is very straightforward. Just like in ID, when you're mapping a building, you should zoom right into the building that needs to be mapped. You should also, of course, check it hasn't been mapped before. So we can see these buildings nearby. They've got these red shapes on them. That means they've been mapped already. This one down here hasn't been mapped. So I'm going to go ahead and map it. To map a building in JOSM, as long as you have the Buildings tool plugin installed, you're going to need to switch the active tool, which your pointer is selected to, from the selection tool, which is default, to the Buildings tool. And you can switch to the Buildings tool by selecting B on your keyboard. Okay, select the letter B on your keyboard. If you prefer to click a button to do this, if you look on the left-hand side of your JOSM window, you'll see a vertical stack of icons. All of these icons are various tools which are available to select. Now, you'll see one which looks like a big block of flats, a gray block of flats. That's the Buildings tool. So if you click on that, that's going to activate the Buildings tool. That's the same as clicking B on your keyboard. When you do that, you may notice that the little icon next to your cursor changes to a little rectangular building shape. Now, with the Buildings tools, go ahead.
Yeah, I need to catch up with you. So when I have the cell selected, like for me, I cannot. The one I selected, I have building already mapped. So I'm trying to move to another cell, and here I'm blocked. It's not working. I click on select mode, and how can I move? Yeah, your square. You have buildings that are already mapped. Yeah, so I have the same issue here, but I'm looking for a cell where they are not mapped.
Yeah.
No.
So what you could do is you could go back to the tasking manager, back to your browser, and when it asks, is this task completely mapped, you could select no and submit it as incomplete.
Okay, and now I can see it there, but I need to select a cell here.
That will allow you to select a new task, and if you're lucky, you might find one that has buildings to map.
So the one I selected on the browser, okay, is now visible on the JOSM. No, they are connected. No. What? Can you do it again on your screen? Because on my screen, I don't think they are connected. So when you go to Task Manager and you click on no, okay, I did. No, okay, submit task. Okay, and then this should appear on the JOSM. No.
No, now you need to select a new task because you've just you've just effectively left the previous task.
Mhm.
So again, make sure the editor is chosen JOSM and select map a task, and that's going to launch a new task.
A task not conducted by me and someone else, not in my account.
No, it will be by you. So because you're logged into Tasking Manager, it will be your task.
Okay.
It will be unique to you.
So I select my task available for mapping. Okay. And then what you have done? Okay, I did this. And then I go to JOSM. Okay, please wait for us here. Once again, locked for mapping. Why locked? Okay. No. I want this. Oh my God. What is one? One second. I'm looking for the one. Okay, this one available for mapping. And then when I clicked on available for mapping, yeah, this is, I have done it. Yeah. Okay, so I did, I clicked on the task, and then I have a, can I share my screen with you for
Yeah, of course.
one more time? Okay, so here, I clicked here. No,
Perfect.
okay.
So you can select map selected task, but make sure that JOSM is selected from the editor menu.
From the editor menu, where is this?
Towards the bottom of your screen. It's actually, I can't see it because it's hidden behind a it's hidden behind that Google Meet share.
Ah, I have each time to do it.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
So I have to do it each time, like not only one time. Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'll
now
show
it
you.
is connected.
Perfect. I'll show you how
Not
to
yet.
change the default later. Perfect.
Okay, so now it should be it should pop up, or I should close it and open it so I can be connected again. Okay, I clicked the JAWS, editor JAWS, and then
You're back in JOSM now.
yeah, it should pop, it should flash like no.
Yeah. If you share your screen, I can help you.
I was saying. Okay, now I have JAWS, and here it is JAWS. Okay, and then this is JAWS. Oops, what happened? Why it here?
Did you select map selected task in the tasking manager?
This one?
Yeah.
Map selected task.
Perfect. Now JOSM's launched it. So
Sorry. But why do? Oh, okay. Okay. I see. Thank you.
do you see any unmapped buildings there?
They are wrong. Yes, there is.
Yeah, there we go.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a.
Perfect. So I'll show you how to map. I'll show you how to map those on my screen.
Okay.
So what we need to do is we need to confirm it hasn't been mapped, so it doesn't have a red box over the top of it. And then you're going to hit B on your keyboard. That's going to activate the buildings tool.
B. Okay.
B. Yeah.
B.
B for beta.
B. Wait. Have you clicked B on your
Yeah. If you click B on your keyboard, your cursor in JOSM will change slightly to having it will have a little box next to it, a little white box. That means the buildings tool is active.
Not working here. Okay, can you do it on your screen? Where you click B?
On your keyboard.
Yeah, I know, but before I open JOSM and then I click B, and I don't have building. Where is the building?
If you share your screen, I'll help you.
Sam, maybe I need to interrupt here. I had this issue before. So before going to click on B, there is a plugin that we need to install through JOSM to activate.
Which is
Yeah, I think Joseph's installed the buildings tool.
I installed the 3 buildings. Yes, I installed them. Okay, I installed buildings and utils and Mapatone.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, but now look, if I this is my job. Okay, if I click B, nothing is the same.
Yeah, that's it. So that's working.
Where is the B? Where is the building?
You've just drawn a building.
Yeah, but I was looking to on your screen. There is building on your right, on the right. No.
It is on the left right now. It's on the left side.
Where?
On the left above the arrow. On the
Yeah.
left. On the left above the arrow. This one.
Yeah, that's the tool. So you've got it active now. That's why you're drawing buildings. If you zoom in a bit, it will help you. So zoom in. Yeah. Now you've drawn some inaccurate buildings. So you can undo your changes there by pressing the back button at the top. Press back 3 times. Perfect. Now zoom right in, and I'll show you how to do this on my screen, because this is a good example. Your one is very similar to mine.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
So by default, when we launch JOSM, the selection tool is active. That's why when I try and click, it's just trying to select, right? But what we need to do is we need to choose the buildings tool, and we can do that by selecting B. So hit B on your keyboard. The difference is very subtle, right? Next to our cursor, we can see an icon there, and when we hit B, it changes to a little building shape next to the cursor. It's a very small change. Once you've got the buildings tool active, you need to place your cursor carefully on any corner of the building. So place your cursor carefully on a corner and hold your left mouse button down. And with your left mouse button held down, drag your cursor along any edge of the building. So align your cursor with any edge of the building, drag along till you reach to the next corner. So keep your left mouse button held down and keep dragging until you reach the next corner of the building. So what you're doing there is you're describing one edge. And then when you reach the next corner of the building, release your cursor, release your clicker, your left mouse button. When you release your left mouse button, what this now allows you to do is it allows you to set the depth of the building. So move your cursor until you reach the other corners of the building, like this. Okay, so I'm not going to go this way because that's not where the building is. I'm going down this way until I reach the other corners of the building. And once you've reached the other corners of the building, tap your left mouse button. And that will draw the building. Now that is a lot faster than the ID editor. I only needed to click twice there. And this thing, this object that I've drawn is already tagged as a building. Okay, it's already tagged as a building, so I don't need to find the building tag like we had to do in the ID editor. And it's also already squared, so the corners are all at right angles automatically. Now, if your building is like mine, and buildings are often like this, if your building is like mine,
mine, it doesn't have a regular shape like yours. It is a little bit curved. So
yeah.
So,
So-
that's why I was trying to delineate it using lines, like clicking, not using polygons.
Yeah.
Is this also doable?
Yeah, that is possible.
Okay, I'm using this.
Most of the time buildings are like this, and they have bits that come out like this. They will have right angle corners, but then they will have parts that jut out like this. So this is kind of T-shaped. Now, if you've got other right angle corners that you want to describe, you should try and do that. And the way to do that is to use another tool, which is called the extrude tool.
شو خصني أنا أنت؟ طيب لا لا مشغول خلص أنا مشغول sorry guys I forget. Sorry, I forgot to open. I'm talking with my colleague. Sorry, but I'm doing the map at the same time. I'm not doing a polygon actually. I'm doing it like with lines because the building I selected is not it doesn't have regular side. So I'm having like yellow cursor, yellow vertices, and now I will try to close it to have a polygon. I assume it is the same like we do on Google Maps. So how we can close it to make it a polygon?
Can you share your screen?
Yes.
I'll have a look. Most of the time, it's better not to freehand draw buildings, but it depends.
Even if it doesn't, if the shape is, look, I had to do it this way, and now on the last, I should have to double click to close the polygon.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it that way. I'll show you how to do this. Let me
if I do it this way,
keep sharing your screen. I'll show you from the start how to do this.
Okay, and I keep my screen, and your screen you'll show me on your screen. Okay, I removed all the lines.
Perfect. So what I would do there is draw a rectangle that fits most of the building.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
So click there. Perfect. Now, what we're going to use is the extrude tool. So click X on your keyboard.
Okay.
X. Perfect. So you can see that the icon has changed next to your cursor to a little triangular icon. That's perfect. What I want to do is
I move the yellow square.
No, that's good. That yellow square just means that that's a corner. It means it's a node. So it's just saying that that's a corner. That's fine.
Yeah, but I need to move it here.
I wouldn't do that for now. Actually, you can leave that for now. What you should do now is you should add additional corners. So you see where you've got a piece sticking out at the southern end. In the middle. Yeah. So what you need to do is you need to add 2 corners. So you can do that by double clicking there. If you double click quickly, perfect, and then double click on the other side. Now you see the center. That's the center of that section that you've just created needs to be pulled out. So hold your left mouse button on that and drag and drop. Perfect.
Wow.
And then the same for the left hand side. Do the same thing. So double click, and then drag. Perfect.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, it's
how
satisfying.
Can I fix this?
The thing is, I don't think that this building is actually an unusual shape. It's just that the satellite imagery we're using has taken the photo from an angle.
Okay.
The thing that this building is tool, and we need to deal with that. So what you've done the right approach here by drawing the rooftop. So you've got the shape of the building, but actually what we need to reflect is the position of where the walls of the building meet the ground, or the footprint of the building, and that's actually further to the right. So what you now need to do is move the building that you've drawn down to the footprint. So if you select S on your keyboard,
S, okay,
should select the selection tool. Great. Now click on any edge of your building and hold your sorry, not a corner, any straight edge. Yeah,
Like this one.
yeah, perfect. And hold your
Yeah.
left mouse button down, and you should be able to reposition this. So if you hold your left mouse button down now, yeah, great. Now drag it down towards the right. I think the building is the building footprint. If you can kind of see the sides of the building to the right hand side and to the south as well.
Okay.
I wish I could annotate this. I don't know.
S. And
Yeah.
then
And then drag, yeah, and keep dragging towards the bottom right hand corner, so towards the southeast.
this way.
Yeah, I would say now, and then a bit further south, a tiny bit further south. Yeah, perfect. That is a very well mapped building footprint. So what you did there is the right approach. It's very difficult to get the shape of the building unless you use the rooftop. So we trace the rooftop, and then once we've got the rooftop shape, we must ensure that the footprint is mapped, which is where the building walls meet the ground. So that's why you've moved what you drew on the roof down to where the footprint of the building is. So that's well mapped now. That's done. Nice. Thanks, Joseph, for sharing your screen for that.
Okay. Should I stop?
Yeah, feel free to stop sharing it.
Yeah. Okay.
So once you've mapped one building like that, you can just keep on going. So here was my one that has these bits that this bit that juts out here. So I'm going to select X, and in the same way I'm double clicking to add corners and then dragging to drag that piece out. Let's try and show you another building. Try and show you. Okay, here's a very tall building. Here's a good example of a tall building and how to map it. So we start by mapping tall buildings by mapping the roof. So I hit B, the B icon, the B letter on my keyboard. I'm going to drag along the edge of the roof and release, and then I'm going to set the depth using the roof, and I'm going to extrude this bit here. So I'm going to use the X tool here and double click here and pull this bit in, because that's the shape of the roof. Now, this is not where the building footprint is, because this is a tall building. You can see the sides of the building here. You can see the shadow over there. So I'm going to select the selection tool by selecting S on my keyboard. I'm going to click on the building, and then I'm going to drag it down to the base where I think the base of the building is, which is down there. Okay. Any questions about this before I show you how to improve previously mapped buildings? Just, it's so much faster to map using JOSM because there's far fewer clicks. I see a building here, I need to map it. I click the B tool, the B icon on my keyboard, the B letter. I drag and release, and then if there's a little bit like that, I use the extrude tool. Okay. You can also use the extrude tool to pull in. If you did an edge incorrectly, you can just pull in and out edges to make them tighter. So if you did it incorrectly the first time, you can use that. It's a very, very useful tool. Now let's talk about how to improve existing mapped buildings. Here, arguably, is a building that's not very well mapped. Why? Well, firstly, it's not sitting on top of where the building footprint is. Secondly, it's not got right angle corners, and I think it's got too many corners. So these corners are not right angled. Okay, they're messy, and it's got too many corners. This building, I think, is simpler than this person has drawn it. So the great thing about OpenStreetMap is you can always edit other things that have been added by other people. So I can improve this building footprint. So I can click on it to select it. So I've got the selection tool. So I've got S on my keyboard selected. And if you want to select that from the menu on the left-hand side, it's this icon near the top here, which has these arrows in all directions icon. I can click on the building that's already been mapped and drag to reposition it. So I'm going to reposition it on the roof to start with. Okay. Now, also, I think it's got too many corners. So I'm going to delete these corners. So with the selection tool, I'm going to drag and draw a box around all of these corners, and it's going to select those corners. They turn red when they're selected. So I can select multiple corners at once. And I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard, and that's going to delete those unnecessary corners. Now, I want to square the corners of this building, okay, to make sure the corners are at right angles, because this corner here and this corner here are not at right angles anymore. That's very easy using JOSM. Just like the ID editor, if you want to square the corners of an object, you hit Q on your keyboard. So that's now squared the corners. Now, I think that this building is slightly larger and also has a piece jutting out here. So I'm going to use the extrude tool on this building to improve it as well. So I'm going to hit X. I'm going to drag this corner, this edge out, drag this edge out, and I'm going to also add a corner here and drag that. Now, I think that this is now accurately reflecting the rooftop, but what I don't have here is the footprint. I think the footprint is probably down here. It's probably like this. So I'm just dragging it down to match the footprint. Okay. So our job also to complete these tasks is to improve badly mapped buildings. So if we see badly mapped buildings, we should improve them. So for example, this one could be moved there. That's more accurate.
So basically, we have the S, the X as a shortcut.
Yeah.
ESX now so far we use, and the select to move the corner. Okay. Easy.
Yeah, exactly. Selection S is to select, and then once you've got the selection tool, you've got something selected, you can select X to extrude it. So I can pull out these edges to improve the shape. For example, this one, and then select it again and move it like that.
Definitely.
Another nice tool to improve buildings is rotation. This building is out of position, but it's also not well rotated. It's not aligning with the angles of the building. Now, instead of moving all of the corners, instead, what I can do is I can rotate the building. And to do that, I must select it first. So with the S tool, I click on the building. And after the building is turned red, after it's selected, if you're using Windows, if you hold Control and press Shift on your keyboard, so keep Control and Shift held down at the same time, keep them both held down, you will notice that a little icon, your pointer icon changes to a little rotation icon. And now if you click and drag, it's going to allow you to rotate the object. Okay. So I've held my left mouse button down and I'm dragging, and I can rotate this object until the angle is better, that it matches the building. So I'm going to release, and now that's rotated. And again, I'm just going to use the extrude tool now to improve these edges. Okay. So moving, selecting and deleting if needed, deleting corners, extruding edges to make them better. Now, deletion is powerful, but you need to be careful with it. We've talked so far about deleting corners, but deleting buildings completely is not really recommended, and you should only really delete buildings if you've got no other option. So that's why I'm going through the trouble of improving these buildings rather than deleting them and mapping them from scratch. Okay. By improving previously mapped things, what that means is that it keeps the history. So the person who originally mapped that building will still be credited with mapping that original building, and it will say it was mapped originally in 2016 or whenever it was mapped. So it has a history. If you delete the building, completely loses that history. So that's why it's important to avoid deleting entire buildings in OpenStreetMap. Okay. However, sometimes you may get to a situation like this where you've got two buildings. I've got a building here which really obviously isn't near to any other building. So it might have been that this building that was mapped a long time ago and it no longer exists. Okay, this one here is near this building, so I'm going to map it onto this. But this one, this really isn't near to any other buildings. So I'm actually going to delete this. Okay, this is a rare thing to do, but I can't see any buildings that it's near to. Typically, you would try and move it onto a nearby building and map it, but it's just not near to anything. So I'm going to select it and delete it. And I'm going to improve this one because it could be better mapped. Okay. Any questions at this stage?
No, so far, so good.
Nice.
I don't know my other colleagues there.
Okay, I'm going to cover now an important thing, which is how to save your work. JOSM is an offline editor, which means you don't need an internet connection in order to map, but you do need an internet connection in order to upload your work. Okay, in order to actually push what you've done onto OpenStreetMap, you need an internet connection. Now, you should try and save your work. You should try and upload your work to OpenStreetMap quite regularly. What we say with the ID editors, every time you've mapped or edited 10 buildings, save your work. So you could follow that similar rule. When you've mapped 10 or so buildings, try and save your work. So you don't need to map every time you've mapped a single, you don't need to save, sorry, every time you've mapped a single building, but try and save relatively frequently. Now, to save in JOSM, to save your work, look to the top of the JOSM application, and you'll see a green upwards facing arrow. Press that, and it will allow you to upload your changes. So it's going to open up an upload window. And here, all you need to do is select upload changes. Okay. So here at the top here, we can see the change set comment, which is like the comment about the work you've done is already populated here. So we don't need to add that. You can just press upload changes and it will give you a successful upload message in the bottom left when that's been successful.
Okay. Upload the data, okay.
And after you've uploaded, you can just carry on mapping. Nothing changes. All the data that you were looking at before is still there. It's just pushed any of the changes you've made, the small changes you've made, onto the map. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this is a bit of this building here is pretty complex. And it hasn't been mapped very well. Hasn't been mapped accurately. So I'm going to improve this one. And it's actually got some round features on it. So I'm going to show you how to deal with that. So I'm going to use the existing object. I'm not going to delete it, but I'm going to delete lots of the corners. There's way too many corners. So I'm going to delete lots of them to simplify it to start with. Okay, I'm going to square the corners by hitting Q on my keyboard. And I'm going to extrude these edges out to try and match the rooftop. But what I have here is something quite unique, which is I've got these circular kind of turrets. I've got one here and one here. Now, luckily, the buildings tool has the ability to draw perfectly circular things as well. So with the buildings tool selected, so hit B on your keyboard. With the buildings tool selected, the buildings tool by default draws rectangular buildings, right? So with the buildings tool here, I'm showing you just some fake buildings. They're all rectangles. It's drawing perfect rectangles. But also the buildings tool has an alternate option, which is to draw perfect circles, perfect circular buildings. And you can access that by holding Alt on your keyboard and pressing Z. So as long as you have the buildings tool selected, as long as you have buildings tool active, so you need to press B first, then hold Alt and press Z on your keyboard, and it's going to switch to the circular buildings tool. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to draw a diameter of a circular building, and when you release, it's going to automatically generate a perfect circle, perfectly circular building. Okay, so there's one here, and there's another one here. So I'm going to do the diameter and release. Okay, and you can see I'm going to do some fake ones here. It's also tagging these as buildings, so it's drawing perfectly circular buildings and tagging them as buildings. So it's very useful. If you want to go back, so the buildings tool will be stuck in that mode.
This is Sam, this is an interesting case. We didn't see how to do a circle.
Yeah.
How we do?
So with the buildings tool,
Yeah.
active, so you need to press B first.
Yeah.
You can switch the mode from rectangle buildings to circular buildings, and you can do that. You can do that by holding Alt and pressing Z on your keyboard.
Okay, 1 second. So I clicked and I clicked Z. No, you know. I
The
click. What's Alt?
the Alt the Alt key on your keyboard. Alt.
Alt. Okay, because that. Okay. So I put Alt and then Z. Okay. I have a very small circle. Okay.
Yeah. If you want to undo that, just press Control Z to undo. Press Control Z twice to undo that small circle you drew.
Okay, but I have a very small circle. I will try to do it again. So
Yeah.
I click on building, draw, and then Alt Z. Oh, okay. No, okay.
You only need to press Alt Z once to activate that mode. Yeah. And if you want to go back to the normal buildings mode, the rectangular mode, you press Alt R. Okay, you press Alt R and it goes back to the rectangle mode. Now, what I've drawn here is overlapping buildings. These buildings are overlapping the building that I've just drawn, which is not good. They shouldn't overlap. Buildings should never overlap. What I want to do here is I want to merge these circular objects that I drew into this larger shape so that it becomes one building. And I can do that with the selection tool. So with S selected, so press S on your keyboard to select. I can click on one object here, the bigger building. And if I hold Shift down, that's going to allow me to select multiple objects. So with Shift selected, I can choose the edge of this building that I drew and the edge of this circular building that I drew. And now I've got all three selected. And now with all three selected, I can merge them into one big building, which is what I want. And I can do that by holding Shift down. With all of them selected, I hold Shift down and press J. And that merges them into one single building.
J?
Shift and J. So I'll just do a fake example. Yeah, let's just do a fake example. So I'll do two square buildings, two rectangular buildings.
Yeah, I get you. I'm just asking about the shortcut.
Yeah.
Shift J.
Yeah, exactly. So I hold down Shift and I click on the edge of both. And then finally, I hold down Shift still and I press J. And that merges them into a single building. Yeah. And I'm going to move this down because I think the footprint is about there.
Can I ask how to rotate again? Can you show me again how to rotate the building, please?
Rotate, yeah, sure. So rotation, if you first of all select a building, so press S to use the selection tool and click on the edge of a building, make sure it's red,
And then shift.
and then hold down Control and Shift, both keys,
Control shift.
and then you'll get this rotation icon, and then click and drag, and it allows you to rotate, and you can release until when you're happy with it.
Okay, thank you so much.
We're getting towards the end, so I do want to share one kind of final thing which is important, which is about layers. Layers in JOSM. Layers are important because they allow us to deal with imagery. So far, we haven't really had to worry about the layers. So far, we haven't really had to worry about the layers, but in the top right-hand corner of JOSM, you have a small panel called the Layers panel. By default, this has 3 layers, 3 different layers. On the top, it will have the OpenStreetMap data. That's the mapped objects. Okay, so we can see that layer on top. Below that, we'll have the boundary layer. So that's the bright colored boundary, which indicates the extent of your area. And at the very bottom, the last layer here is the satellite imagery layer, Esri World Imagery. So you've got 3 layers active. Now, you can turn the visibility of those layers on and off. This is useful. So if you wanted to look at the satellite imagery without all the objects in the way, there's a little eye icon next to the OpenStreetMap data layer. And if you click on that, that will toggle on and off the visibility of the layer. So you can look underneath the mapped objects easily. Equally, if you wanted to see the mapped objects very clearly, you could turn off the satellite imagery. So I can click on the eye icon next to Esri World Imagery, and that's going to toggle on and off the visibility of that satellite imagery. So that's why it turns black, because there's no satellite imagery when I turn the visibility off. The layers are in a stack, and they are in order. So you can drag and drop layers. So if I drag and drop the OpenStreetMap data to be below the Esri World Imagery layer, the OpenStreetMap data is now not appearing. I can't see it because it's below the satellite imagery. So I can drag and drop the OpenStreetMap data to be on the top again. Layers are important because you can add imagery in JOSM. You can add other imagery. If you want to add another imagery layer, you can go up to the top of JOSM and look at the imagery menu, and you'll get a list of imagery sources, and you can choose another imagery source. So for example, if I wanted to look at Mapbox here, I could click on Mapbox, and that's going to add that imagery layer to the layers menu. So that's now added Mapbox imagery, okay, which is now showing. I get a slightly different perspective here now. Sometimes it's easier to see some of these building outlines that were difficult to see before. But I can easily turn off the Mapbox satellite imagery, toggle it on and off by clicking on the eye icon. Okay. So for example, if I wasn't sure that this was really the footprint of this building, it might have been useful to look at the same building in Mapbox, right, to see, okay, that really is the rooftop. That is probably the shape of the building, because this Mapbox imagery was taken at a slightly different angle. Now, we are instructed to use Esri World Imagery for mapping, so we need to map using the Esri World Imagery, but we can use other imagery sources for quick comparison. Yeah. We're right at the end of the session there. So that was a quick intro to JOSM. There's lots more you can learn about JOSM. I'd love to teach you, for example, how to map roads in JOSM, how to map land use in JOSM. But before we do that, let's just save. So if you're going to stop mapping now, just upload. Okay. And completion in when you're using JOSM is the same as it is in ID. So you go back to the tasking manager and you update your task status. So for me, I didn't complete my task. So I'm going to select it as not complete here and submit it. Okay, so you still use the tasking manager for updating your task status. Miko, go ahead. I'm going to hand over to you.
Wait, give me a couple of seconds. I'm
Nice.
looking for my document.
Sorry, yeah, I'm showing you that.
Maybe meanwhile, I have a question. So
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said at the end we should upload our task and go back to the website and put the status of our task if it's completed or not.
Yeah.
So is this a repetitive task after each cell, or like when we finish?
When you want to stop mapping, when you get bored of mapping, or if you're in a mapathon, you come to the end. Basically, when you want to just
One
stop.
cell. So
and
this
you
is
wanna-
related to one
Yeah.
cell.
Yeah, and it relates only, that question only relates to the small square you've been looking at. Yeah.
Okay. So it is only for one cell. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So most likely you're going to be selecting no, my task is not complete, unless
But
you-
I mean, maybe I didn't ask it correctly. Why? So I mean, each cell, each time I should go. Each time I select a cell, I should go back to the website and put the status.
only when you stop mapping.
But when I select a task on the website, it was a cell of the grid. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I finish it on JOSM and I come back,
Yeah.
I want to do another one, so I have it's a repetitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
You always need to let the tasking manager know what the status is of the cell that you selected, because it locks it. And
okay.
it won't unlock it until you update the status. Great, thanks everyone. There's a lot more I could run through with JOSM, but I think what you've learned now is the fundamental stuff, and practice a bit more, and do feel free to start training people how to use it. It's a very powerful tool. Go ahead, Miko.
Okay, my turn. Give me one sec. Okay, I'm sharing a link here. So aside from the one that Sam shared about JOSM, this would completely be different from it. But somehow you may use this in relation to JOSM, because I'm going to talk about points of interests in Lebanon. So part of the project we're going to do and the exposure, we would want you to learn about points of interest, how to upload them on. You may use JOSM actually, but we're going to use a different tool called Map Roulette or probably on the 25th. So let me share my screen. So before we can proceed there, we might need your help in updating some information on this table that we're looking at. So as you can see here, this is a GIS. This is a table of all the data of POIs we have in Lebanon, focusing on historical and cultural points of interest that were gathered from Foursquare. So as you can see, each row here that you can see is 1 point or 1 point of interest. I'm sure you're familiar on this. So each point is represented by a latitude, a longitude, the geometry. But you may notice that there are some parts here that we might need help in filling up, especially requiring local information. As you can see here in the ones in red, this would be some parts that we might need help before we upload the data to OpenStreetMap later on. So here is the name is the Arabic translation of the name, and the wiki data we might work on in the next couple of days. So for example, this one, Cardo de Camanos Crossing. If you can help us produce the Arabic name here, and we will be setting this up in the Map Roulette project later on. So before we can proceed in the map roulette and importing it one by one or manually checking it, we will be needing that extra data. Okay, so we're also looking for wiki data. So this one, the Q4997, this links your POI or your point of interest to their wiki data equivalent. So how do you get that? So for example, this one, let me just share this tab instead. Give me 1 sec. So usually what I do is, for example, this one, Citadel of St. Giles, I just go to Google and search the wiki data. Let me share this tab. So I just searched this Citadel of St. Giles wiki data. So I just click on the first thing I see or the one that it's pertaining to. So it says here it's the Castle of St. Giles. So when you look at this, there's a Q4997 here on the upper portion of the screen. That I'm not sure if you can see it. Stop share. Here. So this one, I just copy this and then transfer it here. So these are the two things we might need help in the next couple of days so that we can start setting up the map roulette project. Saeed, everyone, do you have any questions on this? This is just a small request so that we can prepare for the mapathon next week. All good?
I'm going also to share like a follow-up email, including this document, this spreadsheet, and everything that you have mentioned, Miko.
Yeah, so more or less the help we need is this one, letter G and letter L. So I have some friends that can help us also in looking for the Wikidata, but definitely we might need support from our networks in getting the Arabic translation of this tourist sites and cultural heritage sites. Okay? Yeah. That's all from me. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Said.
Sure. Thanks, Miko and Sam, and thanks, Joseph and Ilya, also for joining this training. Our next virtual mapathon is going to be on 25th at 7 p.m. We have already shared the invitation and the sign-up form. So Joseph, Eli, please feel free to share it widely among your connections, organizations, family, friends, whatever, anyone who is interested. And the theme is heritage sites. Sam, over to you. Closing remarks.
Yeah, hugely thankful, Ellie and Joseph Said for joining this, and been a pleasure to share how to use JOSM. I would say that what you got today was a good sense of the added complexity there is in setting JOSM up. The reason that there is that complexity is because everyone has different operating systems, everyone runs into different issues. This is why we don't introduce JOSM to first-time mappers, although it's a very powerful mapping tool and it actually allows you to map more accurately and faster. We only really introduce it to people who've already joined a beginner event and have really expressed their interest in learning a bit more. But yeah, I'll be sharing the recording of this session after. And please feel free to use the slides that I've shared in the chat for training in JOSM events. But yeah, hugely grateful for your interest in this, and keep in touch. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Aid. Speak soon.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, so you cannot see me. I would maybe on other meeting we do Teams or Zoom, because on Google Meet it never worked. I don't know why.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Happy mapping. Speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look like AB, but older. And we're sharing offices. Wait, Eli, keep it. I will come to you. Wait, maybe you can see from the
Okay.
We can work out how far Joseph has to go. I like the maps in the backdrop. Hey, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Great to see you both. Great to see you both. I'll see you next week, I think, because I'll be at the event on the 25th.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Thanks very much, all.
Thank you.
Pleasure. As always, pleasure. Speak soon.